Hi everyone, this is Alexander Zeitlin, and this is the Lockdown Lecture Series for Intermediate Violin. It's Lesson 5 from our intermediate course, borrowed from the Foundations course in Alias Music and adapted from the classroom setting. Let's jump into it. So last week, last video, we took a look at the second and third movements of our album for the young. And you guys should have been working on articulation details and working up tempos. And I'll give it a run through kind of without the metronome. You guys can play along with me and just see how you're doing. I'll take it at a moderate tempo, but with all the details. So let's see if you guys can keep up. So if you guys could more or less keep up, then you're probably ready to move on to the next details of the next movement. So we're going to scroll down and take a look at the sixth movement, which is what we're tackling next. So if you guys have the notes learned for the sixth movement, then you should basically be kind of at a slowish tempo playing through it. I will now play through the sixth movement. You guys can play along with me to kind of see if you can keep up. Here it is. So that's our sixth movement. Now, that's fairly close to the metronome marking I gave you guys last time, which was quarter note equals 60. But we have to tackle, a much faster tempo, because as you guys noticed from the recording, full tempo is more like. Now, I don't know that we'll be hitting that exact tempo, but that's really what this piece is for. It's for developing your velocity technique. Let me jump over to our lecture notes here. And so we've already gone over the special technique of vibrato conditioning. We now have a new one to learn, because basically what you'll find is that even if you start doing a metronome workup to try to get all this stuff faster and faster, your fingers just don't have the strength and clarity to play at that speed. So how can we develop it? Well, we're going to take a look at our next special technique, which is, for lack of a better term, rhythms reverse, sort of a technique that originates with the Russian school and all their clever ways of attacking technical issues. So this is basically, here's how it works. Let's say you have any given set of notes. I'm going to just kind of draw out 4 notes here. And as long as the rhythm is basically uniform, and meaning the same rhythm all the way through, what you can do is you can take every other note and shorten it, and then every other note and make it longer. I'm going to turn the rhythm into this. So a dotted eighth and then 16th, and then a dotted eighth and then 16th. And I'm just going to do that for every note. Now, more advanced players can actually do this to any rhythm, even if it's not all the same rhythm. But anyway, I sort of have like a long, short pattern. If I go back to my music here, just take like basically, you know, all the notes and just apply a long, short pattern to them. And it's going to sound like this. Just long, short, long. And basically what this does is it decreases the amount of time that you have in between every other note. So between the short to the long, now I no longer have like the same amount of time to prepare these two notes. I have a much shorter time, but I also haven't increased the overall speed of all the notes. Because sometimes if you try to increase the speed dramatically, you have all these notes just coming at you and your brain can't keep up. This way you're drilling the finger work, but not so much, you know, mentally. You can kind of read at the same speed. Also, it makes you begin to group two notes at a time, because between the short and the long, you don't have time to figure out what the next note is. You kind of have to start thinking two notes at a time. So this helps you both memorize and move your fingers quickly through this progression. Now basically the problem is I've only done this for half of the notes between the short and long connections. So now I just need to reverse it. I'm going to do this. I sort of do the opposite rhythm, which looks like this. So 16th dotted eighth. 16th dotted eighth. And it just sounds like a short, long rhythm. Okay. And basically if I applied it, it would sound like this. So the first one sounded long, short, long, like this. And the second one sounds like this. Right? And so I basically would apply this to the entire piece. I would recommend, I'm going to move the mic a little bit closer so you guys can hear me better. I'm going to recommend that you take actually more than one section at a time when you work on this. I'm going to recommend at least like 2 or 3 sections at a time. You could even do the whole piece like this. In fact, if you can do the whole piece like this, you will do it well. Now, so one more thing, when you're applying rhythms and reverse, you want to group it by beats. So this is actually quite important. This helps you mentally think of it in terms of like 1 beat at a time and then 2 beats at a time. So I'm going to just jot down here, group by beats, and you will apply this to your bowing. And this means that you will take, for example, you will start with 4 in a bow, because that's 1 beat at a time. So just slur 4 in a bow all the way through. And then you will move to 8 on a bow. You will do rhythms 8 on a bow. And then you'll do rhythms reverse 16 on a bow. And basically, you'll notice that by the time you get to 16 on a bow, it starts to really move. It becomes right? So just to recap, the way you're going to practice it this week is 4 in a bow, maybe 2 sections, 3 or 4 sections at a time. You might be able to do the whole piece. Reverse. If you haven't done that one, it's always tricky mentally to do the reverse rhythm. Then you'll do 8 on a bow. Rhythms. And reverse. Then you'll do 16 in a bow. Oh, excuse me, rhythms. then you will do reverse. Once you've done all that and you're playing through the entire piece like that, I would recommend one more thing, and that's to do it with what we call martelet rhythms. Martelet is what's known as a hammer stroke. We're going to do this at the tip like this. And then you'll do rhythms. And then reverse. Basically, this just puts some clarity back in your fingers. You might lose some clarity when you are doing all these long slurs. So yeah, this will kind of bring clarity back. Now you'll see once you work on it like this, your metronome work will now drastically increase. You'll be able to get much farther past 60. Everyone's goal should more or less to at least get to 100, if not more. So we'll see if we can get to 100 this week. And then next week we'll do a little bit of our quality work, because this particular movement requires a little bit of this drilling before we can get to all full speeds. So just to recap, you have a special drilling technique that we learned, the rhythms reverse method, that you're going to group by bowing, and then you're going to apply that to the sixth movement. The quality side of this is not too complicated, so I'll go over that with you guys next time. Happy practicing. See you at the next lesson.